All right, folks. Welcome to Friday. It's the casual night of this program. Not that any of them are often very formal, maybe when we have a guest, but it's our off-topic night. We get a little bit away from, our Bible readings or, the big Christian issues and talk about whatever. I've got a couple of topics to start us off. If you're catching me live on Friday, why? Why are you watching a live stream at 8:45 on a Friday evening? You should be doing something enjoyable with your life. Anyway, welcome to the show. My name is Stuart Davis. I'm a flawed man of God. I'm a deacon at a small church just outside of Richmond, Virginia. I'm not a pastor. I'm not a biblical scholar. I haven't been to seminary. I'm not trying to get you to join my church or donate to any special cause. What I'm here to do is talk about God, talk about Jesus, talk about the Holy Spirit, talk about Christianity, talk about the Bible, talk about a host of issues, topics, current events, through the lens of your average Christian guy. Been a Protestant or been a Christian all my life, 40 years, non-denominational Protestant. Don't subscribe to any particular doctrine or denomination. Just in the word daily, trying to do it better. And tonight we're going to talk about some different topics. This is usually more for the usual viewers. Anybody else who wants to chime in if they stumble across the stream, some folks will find out that I'm baiting it tonight, like I do sometimes with algorithm bait. Maybe get some people in here. Realize it's chill. The audience, the discussions are very much sitting around in the living room, sitting around in the den, having a discussion together. If you are a person who already considers himself a follower of Christ, you might enjoy the setting. We treat it very similar to a Wednesday night study group or a Sunday school. So, what I encourage you to do though on most nights, but like I said, it's Friday night, so don't always get a whole lot of traffic. Friday night, come on, be part of the chat, and we'll get into it. We've got a couple of topics, some algorithm bait, and we'll see how it goes. But I usually give folks a couple of minutes to filter in, especially since I don't normally start things at this time. I normally start the show at 8, but we will be eventually, as we head towards spring, shifting this show to 8:30 in the evening to better accommodate particular logistics that need to be met. So, all right. Don't switch. All right. Well, we'll give it another minute and then I'll get started. But it's about 5 minutes then starting the live stream. And maybe I'll talk for a while. Maybe I'll talk for just a little bit. Dismiss. Here we go. All righty. So, tonight, let's talk about some current events from this week, some interesting goings on, and a lot of opinions flying out there. A lot of people want to put their 2 cents in, and that's how it works, especially here in the social media age, especially here with the freedom of expression, supposed freedom of expression, freedom of speech. alleged, because it's interesting. Because the very same amendment doesn't just cover speech, also covers religious expression. And that's really a government thing. It's not so much a private organization thing. But it's very interesting how people like to hold on to certain principles when it benefits them and yet let them go when it doesn't. I try to keep um, I try to keep silent on a topic um, when I feel like if the shoe was on the other foot, I'd be a total hypocrite. And the more I delve into my faith, the more I try to I feel like I mature in my faith, the less real concern I have about government I have, especially going through the Old Testament, like we've been doing in our nightly readings. It's been a clear reminder that the government that we have and the government that we had and governments that we can only imagine, whether it be the uber leftists or the um, extreme right wing or those damnable moderates, if you're not modeling the society and the culture after Christ, whatever government you have is going to suck, right? So I have opinions, right? And I have convictions, but I don't always pass them on to my expectations of the government. I expect the government to let me down. I expect the government to fail. I expect the government to be deceitful because it is generally all of those things. It's populated most of the time with folks who either got in with good intentions and became corrupt or folks who got into it because they were corrupt in the first place. Many of them may not even realize it. And that's the real that's the that's an incredible thing to kind of to consider, but I think some folks just genuinely think that they are entitled to it. Some people genuinely think that they put in the work and so that they're better than the rest. And that's not what the role there is. That's not the right attitude. I'm getting off topic from where I'm trying to drive what I'm trying to drive at. So we had some discussion this week in the sports world. The Philadelphia Flyers had a player, Ivan Provorov. He saw something, didn't agree with, bowed out of it. It surrounded um, Pride Night at their home stadium. Now, Pride Night was a night where they were recognizing the um, homosexual and trans community, LGBT, and they had warm-up jerseys that they were wearing that were the logo was in rainbow, the numbers were in light rainbow, the stripes I think were rainbow too, the name tag was in rainbow, and that's look, we all know what the rainbow signifies to the culture at large. Rainbow has completely different connotations to Christians, but it wasn't Christians who came up with Pride Night. And we do have to, as Christians, kind of separate ourselves with what the rest of the culture is doing because it will suck you into its trappings, its vices. And I don't know, Ivan, Never had a discussion with him. Never run into him. I drafted him his rookie year in my fantasy hockey league. That was what I said. I've always been. He did very well for me his rookie season, and scored me a lot of points in my first of many championships in my fantasy hockey league. But that's really the extent of my knowledge of him, other than the fact that he's still playing. So he pops up that he decided that he didn't want to wear the warm-up jersey. So he said, look, guys, he said the coaching staff or the coach told somebody, he goes, look, I'm not coming out in that. It's not something I believe in. In fact, it runs very counter to my religious faith. And so I'm just not going to participate. I'm going to bow out. Now, team had a chance. Team had a choice to say, okay, well, I mean, we're sorry you feel that way, or we understand that you feel that way, and make a decision. Are we going to let him play? Are we going to tell him he has to play? He has to show up in the warm-up jersey. He has to participate in warm-ups. Are we going to bench him for the night? Or are we going to just say, okay. They decided on the last option. They just said, okay. Because it was warm-ups, right? Wasn't the game. I wonder if they just thought that nobody would notice. People are always noticing. People are always looking for an excuse to be outraged. If it doesn't hurt anybody else, it doesn't matter. If it's something that they decide is worth being outraged about, being disgusted by, well, it doesn't matter who you are. It matters that they want to be outraged. And so there was discussion about it afterwards. And Ivan, I thought, handled the press very respectfully and very matter-of-factly. It's like, look, I respect people. I respect their beliefs, but I have my own convictions. And because of my religious beliefs, I didn't want to participate in it. And so I asked not to participate, or I decided I wasn't going to participate, which was better because he's standing on his principles. He's like, I'm not going to do it. But, any other questions y'all want to have about hockey, go ahead and ask. I'm done talking about this. He didn't say anything further than he disagrees with those choices. He disagrees with it, and he is given that belief by his faith, by it's biblical. We've read it on this channel many times. We've talked about these things. In fact, we were just touching on it when we were talking about Jeroboam taking the Israelites into the lifestyle that got the Canaanites booted out of the promised land. And the media they wanted to be outraged. Now, I don't know how much truth there is to the outrage. I will take them at face value and say these folks probably really do have a problem with what Ivan did. It means something to them, whether they're conditioned to believe that way, whether they're paid to believe that way, whether they have always felt that way, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You had a grown man on the air in broadcasting crying over this, in tears, a professional in his job crying because somebody said, no thanks. Somebody said, go back to your own country where they share your beliefs. You mean the belief to express your own religion? Do we not have that here anymore? I know that there's some arguments to that maybe we don't. And I was not surprised that John Tortorella came to the defense of his player. John Tortorella, he seems like a very hard-nosed coach that doesn't take a lot of grief from people. And so he said, no, not one time that it crossed my mind to bench him. Sounded like he knew the plan from the beginning. I said, "Look, I don't feel comfortable doing this. It's against my faith." And he says, "Okay, all right, man. I'll see you at game time, or I'll see you right before we walk out." Caleb, what's up? How are you doing? You're the only one of the regulars in the chat tonight. Oh, never mind. Dresden's here. Dresden, do you watch hockey? Is hockey big in the UK? I know it's big in Europe, but you guys aren't part of the EU anymore. Hello, Carl. How are you doing? So I just needed to wait 15 minutes for people to start filtering in. That's Friday nights for you. We'll see if Nico gets on. Yeah, I don't see a whole lot of Brits in hockey. I just don't. Y'all are just obsessed with soccer and obsessed with calling it football. I don't understand that. I'm doing very well. Thank you. It's been a busy week, but it's been a good week. It's been a good week. Productive week. It's always good to sit back on a Friday. You send the kids off to bed. We do family movie night every Friday, and watch a movie together. Send them to bed, and then just relax and wait for whatever you're going to do for the weekend. Which I have kind of a list going on. So, but yeah, good week. Hopefully all y'all's weeks are good. Hopefully y'all have got a great weekend incoming for you. That would be great. Party hard. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Blaine's just getting off of work right now because he lives out west. Anyways. And cricket. Just watch. Look, Dresden. Just watch college football. Just watch baseball. And get into hockey if you're not. Hockey's a great sport. I was actually very surprised with the NHL's decision to just say no. Ivan's free to do what he wants and free to express himself in that. And and people might like and might not like that, but that's fine that they don't like that. You don't have to like the decisions people make, and we can hem and haw over it on whether they're right or wrong about their decision. But he didn't make a scene. He didn't make a spectacle. Somebody else made it a spectacle. That was the difference, I think, because a lot of people draw the comparisons to Colin Kaepernick. Kaepernick kneeled when everybody else stood out in the open, and he wanted it. He wanted it to be an issue. He wanted it to be an issue. I think Kaepernick's situation was kind of his exit strategy. And this is coming from somebody, look, follow the 49ers pretty closely at that point. Kaepernick was an amazing athletic talent. Man could throw the football 65 miles an hour. That's an off-speed baseball pitch. That thing was a dart. And I mean, it was or to use a baseball term, a frozen rope going down the field. He was fast. He was elusive. But his football IQ wasn't great, which is whatever, right? the real problem that seemed to be was he didn't have his own composure. When Jim Harbaugh was the coach, who is a quarterback guy through and through, he thrived. But when things got difficult, and it seemed like Harbaugh's last year, he just completely checked out. He was mad at ownership. He was mad at the GM. Nobody was getting along. And, I mean, you could tell the whole game plan of their games just changed. When he's checked out and when he left and there was a different coach there, he was awful. And there was no joy on that offense. There was no leadership. It was like watching the dichotomy, or it was like watching the opposite of Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow Tebow's athletic, but he wasn't great at throwing the football. I say this now. I'd love to get him on the show. He wasn't by NFL standards. He played awkwardly. But he willed his team to win sometimes. And it was just amazing. It was amazing the effect he had on other people in the locker room when the chips were down. But if you should have taken Tebow's personality and Tebow's will, I guess, spirit, and put it into Kaepernick's body and athleticism and talent, dude, you got Patrick Mahomes at that point. I think I think you really have Patrick Mahomes. But there was a difference because Kaepernick's career was spiraling, and his talent was people had figured him out. They knew how to game plan for him. It was easy to frustrate him. It was easy. He was quitting on it. He wouldn't go through his full progressions. He would underthrow the ball. He would throw the ball in the dirt in front of open receivers. It was just bad. Start stating this lady with her own political persuasions. He falls right in line with them. Maybe he always felt that way, and she just gave him the nerve or the courage to express them. But once he started talking, he didn't stop, and he didn't care what he said about anybody. Something to say for that, I guess. But he kept talking. He wanted the cameras around. He cashed in on it. Ivan, here's my piece. And this is why I wasn't out there. That's your answer. Let's talk. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Let's talk about the hockey. And really, I think that's all he said since, right? He's not looking for cameras to say something. He's not jumping on social media. I haven't checked it to see. But man, talk about kicking the hornet's nest. They're still talking about it. Nobody cares about hockey in the U.S. I mean, it's a niche sport. I like it. It's the stepchild of sports in the U.S. Everything it's football first, baseball and basketball. You can mix in the colleges, whether you mix in the colleges between that. Maybe not. Maybe hockey will be above college baseball, probably, but all the rest go above it. As probably viewership is concerned. But now everybody, go Canes. I'm a Devils fan, Carl. Canes are good. I've got Nikas on my fantasy team. Martin Nikas. I can't pronounce any of these names. I've got Nikas. I've got Pacioretty. Can't never say his name either. Max Pacioretty. Of course, he's hurt again, it seems. And do I have a defender for the Canes on there? I don't think I have a Canes defender anymore. But they've, Nikas has been lighting it up for me. I'm glad I picked him up early in the early in the season when he started doing well, and I figured this might be a temporary move, but man, no, he's staying. He's staying on there. Like I said, I'm a Devils fan. We're right behind you guys in the standings, and this has been a very amazing look. You knew the Canes have got a good team all around. It was like that team coming in that like you had expectations. I'm a Devils fan. I haven't had expectations since Martin Brodeur left the team. We had 1 year where crap. Daggone, I can't remember his name. He's on the Bruins now. Crap. Well, he won the MVP, and he basically willed the Devils in, and then we ran into the buzzsaw that is the Tampa Bay Lightning, and we didn't win a game. So that's the thing. So, I'm watching kind of, but I'm expecting the Devils to do poorly. And then the next thing I know, win, win, win. I think they did 13 wins in a row at the beginning of the season. Whoo. Whoo-wee. It's awesome. It's awesome to see. I was caught the very end of the game they had with the Kraken last night, which we lost in overtime. But yeah, it's good. It's good to see that we've got. It's always good to run into fellow hockey fans. Always good to talk hockey. It's like running into Reds fans when I'm baseball. Everybody around here, they either watch either a Braves fan or a Nationals fans or an Orioles fan because that's how it is. Always good to talk about sports with fellow fans. All right. Caleb says I get to go to Atlanta for lunch tomorrow, but that's about the extent of my weekend. I like Georgia. The further south, so being in Virginia, you're the mid-Atlantic, and we are basically the end of the South. And other southern states may or may not agree that we are actually the South. But what I realize is the further south you go after you pass North Carolina, once you pass North Carolina, everybody gets nicer on the road. Now, I haven't been in the famous Atlanta traffic. Both times I've been in Atlanta, I've bypassed it somehow. I think the first time I flew in and I got there late at night. So there wasn't not in your area of Virginia. Where are you at, Carl? What area? I mean, I'm not trying to find out exactly where. But like what region? Northern Virginia, Northern Neck, Tidewater Peninsulas, mountains. I love this state. It's beautiful. I love it. I love how diverse it is. Oh, Danville. Oh, I've been down there. Used to go to VIR all the time. Love that. Yeah, you're close to the you're close to North Carolina there. In Virginia, you get a little bit of everything, except for desert, right? We've got the coast. We've got the Atlantic right there. We've got a lot of rivers. We've got farmland. We've got mountains. And we've got the swamp up north. Unfortunately, and that's like all the nice stuff about Virginia. The fact that we're so close to the capital, we are poisoned by all the beltway crap that exists in Northern Virginia. So Dresden, did you say, look, Dresden, do you know about West Virginia? West Virginia. There's been a time recently though where we've wanted to be every place in Virginia but Northern Virginia to be annexed by West Virginia because we would rather live with. Stop it, Caleb. West Virginia is not West Virginia. Okay. Oh, look, Dresden, the UK guy, and has some Civil War knowledge. He got some Civil War knowledge. He knows. I didn't think they taught y'all any. So when did you learn Civil War history, Dresden? I didn't think they taught it all and taught anything about it in the UK except for, hey, the Americans had a war over slavery, basically. Lots of people died. It was a turning point in American history. I still remember there used to be a show. I think they had it in the UK first, or the lady who did it because she was British did a show in the UK. Anyway, it's called The Weakest Link, right? It was one of those trivia shows. It was one of those game shows where they're asking you trivia, like Jeopardy or something like that, or Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And so you asked all these questions. So you progressed through the game, through the show, you progressed. And so this lady who was a teacher, a middle school teacher, I think, a middle school teacher in California. She makes it all the way to the finals. Right. Teacher asks, or the game show lady asks her, this was the first battle in the Civil War. Right. Could have said Bull Run. I think the first one officially is Sumter. I mean, that's when the first shots of the Civil War are at Fort Sumter. Manassas Bull Run. That's your first like real battle, I think. She says Fort Appomattox. And it was such she said it was Fort Appomattox, and it was such a California answer. Week one, it was wrong. Appomattox Courthouse is where Lee surrendered to Grant to bring an official end to the Civil War. It did still continue in pockets for, I want to say, decades afterwards. It feels like it wasn't a fort. It was just Appomattox Courthouse. It's not too terribly far from here. I live on Battle of Bethesda Church. Yeah, I hear people call mathematics that. Yeah. What is it? Powhatan. They like to call it Powhatan. Look at the Powhite Parkway. It's just that you got to look. It's white trash. It's the white trash road. It's Powhite's Powhite Parkway. Wife is from Poquoson. There's a lot of Indian tribes or Indian influence. We've got a lot of locations named after it. This is the place. This is the first real successful English presence in America. It was at Jamestown. A lot of history down here, out here in Virginia. As I said, there's so much to like about it. So much to like about it. It's been a contributing factor on why I've stayed. The big reason I've stayed in Virginia and turned down job offers where I could have been making a lot more money than I do is because my family's here. Um, my church is here. My church family is here. It's a good school system. It's home. Everything is settled. I have roots, and my kids have the opportunity to put down roots, or they can decide to leave. But they have the opportunity to put down roots where all their family is, and I think that's, to me personally, that's more important, because things in Hanover are good enough um, to have that expectation for the kids. It's like there is security here. There is opportunity here. It's just, it's not going to Delaware to go work at DuPont. It's not um, going out to St. Louis to be a defense contractor. It's not doing things that I've had the opportunity to do and make a very good living. Make a decent one now. I'm happy with things. But it helps that Virginia's a beautiful state. No getting around it. James River. Spent summers on the Rappahannock River. My grandmother retired to a house there before she blew all of her money and then sold it because she'd blown all of her money and alienated all of the neighbors. So she sold it, much to everybody's sadness. Like I said, ocean, Virginia Beach used to be not the best. Everybody in Virginia would just go past Virginia Beach and go to the Outer Banks in North Carolina. Virginia Beach has developed well. We've got the Eastern Shore. Gosh, I totally forgot about the Eastern Shore. Eastern Shore is a very, just driving through it is awesome. It's beautiful. The Eastern Shore, for those who don't know, so you've got Virginia, and it comes up. It's kind of a triangle shape, right? Virginia's kind of a triangle shape, and then you've got Maryland above it. Well, the part of Maryland that faces the coast, flows down, and there's a point where it stops being Maryland. It's a long point from the top of Maryland, almost reaching down to Virginia Beach. It reaches down there. And so that's mostly like, not necessarily wetlands, but it has kind of that feel to it. It's got that bucolic, rustic beach look to it. It's not very, very developed. They have these horses, they call, because there's a place out there called Chincoteague. There's these ponies out there that are wild, and the Chincoteague ponies, it's almost like a reserve. It's very quiet. Washington State, Carl, we have a regular out here. My cousin is moving to Seattle soon, very soon. We have a regular viewer. He's not on tonight. Blaine's Escape Corner, who's got his own YouTube channel. He is from just outside or in the suburbs of Seattle as well. I've got another friend out in eastern Washington State. They all say it's beautiful. My best friend in the Army, when I was in my Army, my best friend was from Medford, Oregon, which is not Washington, but just south. He goes, and he told me, Virginia is beautiful, but Oregon's way better. I've seen pictures. My mother-in-law used to live on the Puget Sound. She was married to a Coast Guard guy for many years. They lived in a lighthouse, the Coast Guard lighthouse on the Puget Sound. And I mean, she'll say, absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. We get a lot of grief as Americans about not getting out and seeing the world. There's a lot of world that is the United States. There's a lot of world that is the United States. You can see a lot of things by just traveling through our own country. Culturally, there's differences, but it's not like, switching between the cultures in Europe. But from the sites, man, there's a ton. You get, you really do get a little bit of everything. If you get away from cities, it's great. Most things are. I'm not a city guy. If you're from Danville, I'm sure you can appreciate that. I was I was raised in Hanover before it developed to where it is. Have you ever been to Sugar Tit, South Carolina? No, in fact, I haven't. I've been to Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. I haven't been into Carolina all that much, and not been in South Carolina. I've been all over North Carolina. I haven't been to South Carolina all that much, which is a shame. Charleston's that's another place that I really need to get to. Charleston's supposed to be really beautiful. My wife's been there. She had a friend whose husband was stationed at the naval base out there. And so she went down there to visit, came back and said, we got to get down there. And we just haven't made the trip yet. You're not missing much. Is that where you live, Neo? You live out there in South Carolina? South Carolina is supposed to be a better state, West Virginia versus Maryland, West Virginia. I need to go to the race out in Darlington. And I don't even watch NASCAR all that much anymore. South Carolina is supposed to be the refined Carolina. It's not supposed. North Carolina is supposed to be the trailer park between South Carolina and Virginia. I had a boss who was from Orangeburg, I think. Yeah, Orangeburg, South Carolina. Huge Clemson fan. He grew up working textiles, and I think spent a lot of time working for Ethel Corporation down there in South Carolina until they moved him up into Richmond. Richmond used to be worth going to. Look, and I've got my own opinions about Monument Avenue. I don't like making statues of people, and people looking to them that the way that they did. I thought that they were brought down. I thought they were removed for the wrong reasons, but I didn't necessarily. And so that it was sad to see that, and the way they were, in the whole, all the protest and everything. But I did not necessarily have a problem seeing statues that, look, some people worship Civil War people. Look, I was named after Jeb Stuart. I was named after Jeb Stuart, and my dad's not really that into the Civil War. Little did he know, his wife, when we did genealogy, he turns out my mom, his wife, is actually a niece, which makes me a nephew of Jeb Stuart. But so my great uncle is sitting up there at one of the monuments at Stewart Circle, and I think he's the first or the second one peeled down. But did I want to see it done that way? No. But I also understand that there's a lot of people who have certain feelings about the Civil War, who almost deify these generals, right? I didn't like, they just recently dug up AP Hill. AP Hill's monument is actually his burial site. Like, he's buried under the monument. And they just what, a month ago, 2 months ago, I think it was last month though, dug him up and removed him. So, but Monument Avenue was part of the what I guess what Richmond kind of is when you're there looking at that part of it, the aristocratic South, right? It was supposed to be like a poor person's Charleston or a poor person's Savannah, a poor person's Atlanta. Like, there's no two ways about it. Dude, we are a small city. It's a small surrounding area too. We cannot and will never field our own professional major league sports team. We've got the Flying Squirrels in Richmond, which is fun to go to for baseball. It's double A for the Giants. But we're not going to see a Hurricanes come into town. We're not going to see an expansion football team. We're not going to see any of that stuff. We're just not big enough, and we're not dedicated, and we're not a dedicated enough fan base. Being in Virginia is kind of like being in Florida. You pick whoever you want. We're all free agents. Though the Redskins fans, or I guess the Commanders fans and the Braves fans and the Nationals fans will all say, "Well, no, you're part of Virginia." No, that Washington is its own place. Way off. We are way off topic tonight. So, Richmond was the capital. Richmond was the capital, and Richmond burned because of it. Caleb, there's a Confederate flag right off I-85 close to where I live. Hey, look, they're all over where I live. My brother, who lives in the Philadelphia area, says that he grew up around here. Just obviously, my brother, he says you'll see more Confederate flags in New Jersey than you will anywhere in Virginia. I wonder if that's true comparing it to South Carolina. Caleb, South Carolina, no motorcycle helmet required. North Carolina, helmet required. That should sum up the Carolina. Yeah, well, yeah. Maybe North Carolina is more refined than I give them credit for. They do have Emerald Isle, is that no, like massive. No, we have one of those. There's one of those in Virginia on 95 South. Yeah, that's Carl. Carl knows what I'm talking about. It's been in the news a ton. And it's right on 95. Like, every time I'm going down going down to Topsail, it's right there. I'm probably gonna pass it sometime soon because I gotta head on down down in that area. See it as free speech. It is what it is. To me, I think the Civil War is one very intriguing point of history. It's a very important part of history. It is a often misunderstood point of history. A lot of people want to make it into things that it's not, on both sides. On both sides. They try to lessen what they don't like about the narrative about it. They try to we have the flaggers because we're the last capital. But it is there's a lot to learn out of the Civil War. There's a lot of folks who I know a lot of you guys came to this show from Nick Ricada coming on here to talk to me. Nick and I have similar feelings about, the way that society is. We don't think that we're going to head towards a civil war like what we saw in the 1860s. It's probably going to be a cultural civil war, and I think maybe we might already be in the middle of it, or the beginnings of it. I don't think we're anywhere near the end of it. But it's very much in the way that because the United States looked very different geographically, territorially, was very different at that point. Culturally was so different. America now, it is very much city culture versus county culture and rural culture. Anyway, so my point, so rounding back to Ivan, glad to have. By the way, glad to have you on. Even more glad to have a fellow Virginian here on the stream, Carl. Glad you're tuning in. So my thoughts on Ivan Provorov. I think he did the. I think he did the right thing, because his values reflect mine in that. I think he did it the right way. I think he didn't look for attention to it. He didn't try to virtue signal his way out there. He was very quiet about it. And they even had to ask him what his denomination was. He's Russian Orthodox. I think he represented the Russian Orthodox pretty accurately, which is probably more so than any of the other Russian Orthodoxy that's that are in hockey. And thankfully, the NHL has had his back, and eventually, the whining in the sports media will stop. But they're taking their ire out on Tony Dungy now. That's the thing, and I think that's where I think that's why the mantra don't apologize to the mob has a lot of credence to it. Number one, you can just say no. Your apology is never going to be enough. And two, if you wait them out, eventually they're going to find something else to capture their attention. You're still going to be a piece of dirt to them, but they're not going to be focusing on you as much. All right. So I listed Crowder into Daily Wire. I've been listening to Nick's breakdown of the contract and the dispute about it. Now, number one, I don't consume a whole lot of Daily Wire media. I read a little bit of Megan Basham, very little. If it's content on Daily Wire, I don't watch it. I just kind of read her tweets. A lot of times she has takes that I like, and she's a contributor for it. But I don't find genuine personality out of Candace Owens. I don't think that that Ben Shapiro is a friend of Christianity. I think that he sees it as a dollar sign. He sees us as a commodity, or as he sees us as a resource to be mined. But he doesn't want Christian values. He wants his own values, that as long as the Christianity lines up with that, he's okay with it. As long as Christianity is going to provide him with a consumer base, he's fine with it. But when asked about Christians evangelizing to Jewish people, he has said that's anti-Semitic. The gospel is anti-Semitic, and I hate that take is that is such a traditionally leftist take. And I get it. He is Jewish, and he wants to protect his faith, wrong as it is. He wants to protect his faith. But calling it anti-Semitic is not the right way. He could just say, no. He goes, how do I feel about it? How I would take it if he goes, well, what do you think about Jewish folks evangelizing to Christian folks? Like if the tables were turned, which really isn't. The way it's been described to me, evangelism is not really a tenet in Judaism. But that aside, if the tables were turned, and if somebody asked me, how do I feel about it? I'd be like, well, that's going to happen. But I would hope that that my fellow Christians are strong enough in their faith that they can resist the temptation to fall away from Christ. I'm not victimizing myself. I'm not victimizing my faith. I'm not attacking the other faith, which I disagree with. That's how you handle it. But he knows he's going to get away with it. He knows he's going to get away with it because people are going to still listen because the Daily Wire does have the content that it has, and they are going to profess as much as they do. I don't listen to Steven Crowder hardly at all. He's hilarious. His memes are hilarious. The prove me wrong memes are great, but never caught his content. I mean, when I hear clips, I mean, I agree with a lot of it, but I know he's huge. I know he's big. Look, most of the the conservative media content that I grew up with and consumed was by far Rush Limbaugh. My dad listened to him. I listened to him all the time. And then Glenn Beck was coming up. And this is before he got really big. I took my dad to go see him. He was doing a live show in Richmond. I came back from Iraq. I was home for a 2-week mid-tour leave. It was Father's Day. Took him to that for Father's. I think it was Father's Day that we actually went to go see it. It was a great show. And so when I got out of the Army, I would listen to him. But then after the 2008 election, he got really weird, went really doom and gloom, got just everything was the end of the world that he ran into. It was very much, to me, it felt very fake. It felt really forced. It felt really contrived. It was too much. And so I stopped listening to him for the most part. And that's what I think the big difference. I thought he was going to be Rush's heir apparent, but that's the apparent part was, while Rush always had a positive attitude in how he approached things, that he disagreed with, like he was going to be bubbly on his personality on camera was always going to be bubbly. Might be a little angry at times. He might go on a rant or whatnot, but it always reverted that. And Michael said, and I was going to say, it was mostly Rush Limbaugh, and then a little bit of Glenn Beck and a little bit of Michael Savage. And Savage says some things that I'm sitting there like, right on, buddy. But there's a lot of anger in that man. As much as Glenn Beck was doom and gloom and sad to listen to, Michael Savage is rage incarnate. And his time slot was hard for me to listen to as well. I don't even know if he's still I think he's still broadcasting. I don't think he has much of any respect for other people in the conservative space. He's got a problem. It sounds like he has got a problem with everybody. I don't know. He can be fun to listen to, though. He can be fun to listen to. It's like, to me, he is like listening to Philly talk radio. Not Philly talk radio. Listening to Savage is the political commentary equivalent to listening to Philadelphia sports radio. I hate everything. I hate the world. I hate everything that's going on right now. It's it's hilarious. It's hilarious. But yeah, and he falls in that same trap as Beck, is negative space. Very negative. Attitude was very negative. Could say some very deep. He has some deep thoughts. And he has some relevant thoughts on things. But yeah, so I just haven't picked up Crowder. I know a lot of people listen to him. A lot of people think that he is great. I mean, he has definitely become very successful. But he's not the only one. I mean, Ben Shapiro has become successful. Glenn Beck has become successful. Tucker Carlson has become successful. But listening to Nick And if you guys haven't heard it yet, I haven't picked up the third part yet. I'm going to be listening to that tonight once I end the stream. Nick Rekieta's breakdown of the contract, being somebody who is currently navigating the waters of social media, streaming services, becoming relevant in that space in a small degree, hopefully larger. He's a buddy of mine, so I hope he does better. I hope he becomes the best. Genuinely hope he becomes the best. I disagree with him on some religious takes, but you're never going to agree with everybody on everything. We agree on most of the important stuff. And being a lawyer and having that and looking through the contracts, having the resources and the people like Ty Beard who negotiate multi-million-dollar contracts all the time. His perspective, I thought, really put into clear what broke down. And I'm not going to say Crowder, because I don't know what the whole Crowder taping the stuff is. I haven't gotten to that far into that yet. Maybe I'll save that for more commentary for next Friday. We'll see. But the origin point of the contract, the guy Boring issued a contract because Crowder, like he said, was a free agent. He's on the open market. He claims to be a friend. Maybe they are. But the contract wasn't friendly. And I thought that it wasn't, or I guess the best thing to say was the contract was not a contract born of friendship. It was one born of I am trying to get a deal cut from my. He might be. And look, it's his business. Him and Ben Shapiro run that business. If they can get Crowder at a discount, then great. Do you try to get your friend at a discount? Yeah, most small business owners don't like it when their friends come expecting a discount. I thought some of the stuff sounded pretty okay, but that's when you look at it on the surface. And then Nick was like, "This is what you might not understand. This is what the other side. This is if they decide they want to take advantage of the language in there. This is what you can do." But the part that really stuck with me was the part of the situation reminds me of wrestling promos. It does. Dude, so much internet, so much drama in general. That's the thing. I think wrestling is so much of a microcosm of drama in general. And I think that's why it's so great to watch the wrestling stuff, because it's such a satire of it. Everybody's posturing, everybody's nipple rubbing and doing all this other stuff when I don't know who's the good guy, bad guy, or if there's no good guy, if they're both good guys or they're both bad guys. But I thought that the idea that you're going to buy the production, you're going to buy the stuff, the content that Crowder produces, and you're going to own it. But and then say at the same time that if it doesn't pan out the way you want it to, you're going to expect him to share the brunt of it, of the loss. Where is that? Where is that anywhere in business? You either buy it and you assume all the risks, all the reasonable risks. It's a very real possibility that Crowder gets canceled, booted off of YouTube, taken off of what is it, Apple, whatever Apple's platform is, Apple TV or whatever. He gets deplatformed significantly. And um so that. You already know that. It's happened before in some capacity, so you know that. So you understand the risk and you say, I'm going to buy all your stuff. But if something happens along the way, that's a very real possibility, especially with, he's 4 years. That means there's a presidential election right in the middle of it. There's a chance he gets deplatformed and I can still rake in all the benefits and yet still, if I can still punish the creator, I could still punish the contractor. I didn't like that part. And I thought his explanation it sounded a lot like he was trying to sell something that wasn't real. Like explain why it was a good idea when anybody with a brain knew it wasn't. And I think that might have been that, and a couple of other things might have been what upset Stevens' ego or whatever. I don't know all the conflict, and like I said, I'm still not all the way read up on it. But it was to me it's if any of y'all have bought a house before, you want to come in low, right? But you don't want to go in so low because you can talk to a real estate agent. Many real estate agents can tell you that in some situations you can come in with an offer so low that the sellers don't want to deal with you at all going forward. You want to come in with an offer low enough to be reasonable, but you're trying to reach that sweet spot for you, and they're trying to reach that sweet spot for them. They want to get as much money, and you want to get it for as cheap as possible. I think that they came in, they lowballed it so bad that it pissed him off. Should he have expected this? I don't know. That's down to the conversation that they may have had. That may have been taped or may not have. I don't know. Again, at that point, but the language on the language in the contract sounds a little predatory, and that's not what a friend does. That's not what respect is. That's somebody looking out for their own business interests and solely for their own business interests, and he's got every right to do that. Just like Crowder's got his own right to be offended by it. The thing I haven't understood with it at all was what does Steven gain from that contract at all? I don't think he gains anything from that contract. What he gains from a contract could be some security, some support, some infrastructure, some community around it. I mean, there's benefits to it. I think though, as big as he is, or as big as he seems to be, he might have always been better being on his own and doing his own thing. If if he has the means to produce it, it's not that big of a burden on him, and he can make his own money. And he's going to be the flagship personality on that. Just stay in your own. Carl said it's funny that it was a contract for a newer creator and not established. Yes, it did. It really did seem like it was something for like kind of a relative unknown, or maybe a less stable person who might fly off the rails. I don't know. And that's the thing about drama, being the outside commentators. We have to, I don't like to bring in the hot take that this is the thing. This is what's happening. Unless it's very clear from what a person is saying. However, when it's drama, discussion between two people, gets a little murky in the he said, she said. What's not being talked about? What might have been discussed in a conversation that's embarrassing for both parties? Who's misrepresenting what was discussed in a discussion, and or are they both misrepresenting? Divorces get ugly because there's a lot of there's strong feelings involved. This drama like this isn't much different. And here's the thing: the drama and all the histrionics and theater behind it is good for business for everyone, because they're all getting exposure. This thing is blowing up. It's just going to drive interest in both parties. Could it be fake? What are we talking about? Reminds me of wrestling promos. There you go. But I decidedly do not like Ben Shapiro. I don't like his attitude about things. He is very much a condescending jerk. And like I said, he's not an ally to my faith. He views me as a resource to mine. So I don't trust him. I don't know Mr. Boring at all, but the contract wasn't a very good reflection of it. And like I said, and I've heard people to say come at it on both sides, but like I said, I think the best breakdown of it and the most honest and neutral of it, well, maybe not neutral, was Nick. And that's me trusting him. I have a level of trust and respect already baked into when he gives an opinion on something. I'm more likely to consider what he says than I would by pretty much anyone else on Twitter. I give him the same respect I would and consideration that I would give to any friend of mine who I think is thoughtful. But I also understand that he is in some ways very qualified to give analysis in this matter. Caleb said, it doesn't matter to me either way until I heard Candace on Tim's show. What did Candace say? Because I don't listen to Tim Pool either. Like the most I've heard of, I've heard Tim Pool talk a little bit. I've listened to his show a very small amount. Very small amount. But I can only imagine, because she's been very hostile towards Crowder. I mean, she's on the other side, right? She works for Daily Wire. That's her bread and butter. I don't find Candace to be a very genuine person either. She gets in, but she's a human being. She's not going to be perfect. She's not going to be perfect. The problem, and that's part of the problem with having that level of celebrity, is that you're going to judge a person based on the things you see, and you see a lot of their behavior. Imagine yourself being put into situations. And I know I do and say things I'm not proud of semi-regularly, right? Maybe not so much in public, a little bit on Twitter. I'm very salty on Twitter, just because of the space that and the stupid stuff that's getting pushed in front of me that I disagree with. But because I say I disagree with it and I got to comment on it, they show me more of that stuff. I need to figure out a way out there. I don't like blocking people. Swap to a computer so I can type. It's so much faster. Type away. Tell me what you said. I'll stay on for another 15 minutes. Call it an hour and a half show. While you're typing that, Carl, well, like I said, welcome to the show. I hope you're enjoying this. Very, very casual. This is the general setting. Caleb's a regular. Dresden's a regular. We normally have Texan Italians a regular, but these are generally the quieter folks in the chat. But we generally have about half dozen to a dozen guys in the chat. We do Bible read throughs. I don't know how much you know about the channel. I just read through the Bible. We're in the middle of 1 Kings right now. talking about Rehoboam and just giving a reaction and say, like, what do we see when what we're reading here as we read two? We do about two chapters, one to two chapters a night, and everybody's input is welcome. I want to hear. Ideally, I would hear everybody's opinion on what we read. Oh, good, good. So by all means, dude, I'd love to have you back in here, especially like I said, fellow Virginian. The main issue I had was her tone with it. I had never heard anything from her before that, and it was just rage. And that's part of the thing. I heard like 5 minutes, and I was like, I don't need the negativity in my life. That's what I'm saying. Candace burns hot. She runs hot. It's like the Bill Burr stand up. I idle at 75 miles an hour. That's her. She idles that. And I don't know how much of that is contrived and put on because it sells, or if she's generally that way. Either way, it's a little too unstable for me. And it's not as considered. It's not as measured. You don't get a measured approach from Candace. I don't like Ben Shapiro, but a lot of times he has got when he comes at something, it's more measured. I genuinely will gravitate towards a measured approach, even though I myself might not be doing it. If a person can give a measured approach, I would be. I generally am more likely, and I think most people are more likely to give it the attention it deserves. So I listened to Ben years ago, but the real MVP is Alex Jones. Alex Jones is a hoot. He gets look. I don't like the things he said about the school shootings. Like, I thought that was low rent. That was very low rent of him to do. Wasn't his best look. But he is, again, he's like like Michael Savage can be. He can be purely entertaining. He's a great meme. He is a great meme. He is a great GIF. The reaction you can get by using him with the right a GIF of him with the right person is great. So, oh man. Basically that I think he said that's, and this was the part of the lawsuit. He said that Sandy Hook was a hoax, claimed that the dead kids were crisis actors. And and then it's hard to be upset with parents when they get upset about that. The chasing this hard over the money, I don't understand. Because, and I'm not in their position, but I know a family that lost a kid due to a medical mistake. But the medical mistake saved one of their lives. Or was when the mistake was made, it was when somebody was saying one of the family members' lives was being saved. And the opportunity was there to pursue punitive action. Ultimately, they decided not to at all. And, obviously, when a mistake is made in the pursuit of saving a life, it's difficult, and especially when that life was saved, it's easier to have grace about it. But a big factor was we just want to move on and grieve and and do that. I think at some point, I think at some point we've long passed the part where you have to pursue, and now you can just grieve. Other than just going out and being so angry with him that you shoot him or do something like that. I'm not promoting that. I'm just saying, if you're when you've reached that level of rage, I could understand you being that angry. But if you're just trying to push the man further into bankruptcy, I mean, you can't bleed but so much from him, so much financially from him. You're never going to get what you've already gained from him. So are you just trying to keep him in litigation for the rest of his life? I mean, is that the point? I don't know what the end game is, but at what point do you bury the dead and move on? And that's a difficult perspective. I don't have it, and hopefully never do. It's hard to deal with. I mean, loss of a child, especially that young, in such a way that it was, is traumatic. And then somebody basically saying it never happened publicly in the way it went down. I can understand vendettas are created from that. But I think we're well past the time just to let it go. Let it go and grieve. Ben got redundant when he was debating college kids. Ben is very redundant. In fact, who knows how many times he repeats himself when he talks, because he talks so fast that you're spending so much time trying to figure out what he's going to say that you don't understand maybe that you're missing something in what he says. Ben has had a hard time recovering since the since the troll job with his wife happened. All right, guys. I'm gonna wind this down. We've said what we've seen. We've had our chill stream. We've had our hour. But small group, still worth it every time, guys. Still worth it every time. What do we have looking down the pipe? I want to get the other Paul on here soon, back on here soon to talk about Reform 3 Oliver. A flawed man of God. At a flawed man of God. I think the logo is the same too. Try to get the other Paul back on here. He's down for it. We were talking earlier. Christian Mario's Twitter ID has disappeared. I'm trying to find out. I know Paul knows him and talks to him somewhat regularly, so I'll find out what's going on with that. His Twitter has disappeared. So I don't know what that means. It kind of happened out of the blue. I know he's got some. Carl, you have the same name as a very close family member of mine. Try to find out. I know Mario's had some things to pray about with some health concerning his family members. So he might be in the middle of that. Some people were being very personal with what they said about the said family members when he was asking for prayers. So hopefully everything's going well on that end for him, and he's just maybe he's just taking a break because we all need a break. What else? Try to get Jeff Operation St. Cyprian on here. To talk about supernatural aspect of Christianity. I'm still reaching out to Hans Feeney to get him back on the show. Speaking of Twitter accounts that don't exist anymore, Remy Shepard's it isn't, and so I was going to bring him on to talk about Lutheranism some more, but I can't find him right now. It still says he follows me, but I think he's deactivated right now. I think he's taking a Twitter break as well. Which is, look, I encourage everybody to just get the heck off Twitter. It's toxic, it's terrible, but at the same time, I've met a lot of good personalities, and I've brought a lot of content onto this show specifically because of that. It's basically been Twitter, Nick, and a couple of folks that I know. Speaking of that, I want to get Billy Dyer on to talk about something. Anyway, I'm going to get E.L. Jones from a local church. He is a pastor at a local church. His dad was my pastor growing up. His dad was one of the best pastors I've ever listened to. Very, very home cooking for me. He married me and my wife, and his son, who is a year or two older than me, is currently doing a great job building a church in this community. So I want to get him on. He's already talked to me. We were supposed to do it last year, but I got busy and he got busy, and so it never materialized. So I'll need to bring him on. Who else? Nick has agreed, but I need to iron out details on whether we want to do it on his show or my show. I'm fine with doing it on whatever. So there you have it. I don't have any reason to think I won't be streaming on Monday, so I think Monday's going to be our next stream. Caleb said, on the topic of losing kids and sad stuff like that, if you get a chance, there's a book called They Call Me Job. If you're ever looking to read the mind of a woman that has 4 kids passed before her, look. All right, real story, because this is recent. Okay. And maybe Neo, maybe you were on the stream. I lost a cousin a couple months ago. A younger cousin. He was 32. He was a kid that I had a lot of affection for. We used to be very close. We had drifted apart a little bit. He had some addictions that he had struggled with, that he had overcome, and then slipped up once, and it was that's all it takes. His brother, I was very close with. Both of his brothers I'm very close with. But the youngest one, the oldest one, is just a few months older than me. Him I look up to as kind of an older brother. The younger brother, he was the middle kid, and I were very close. We got into all sorts of we did all sorts of shenanigans together, all sorts of practical jokes, all sorts of inside jokes together. He died when he was 29 back in 2018. Just undiagnosed heart issue, wasn't feeling good. He was sick, went to lay down, never woke up. His mom found him a few hours later. It was sad and unexpected. And my uncle has had to endure losing 2 of his kids. And then also this summer, he lost his stepson. And so I was eulogizing. So we were at the funeral. My uncle gets up and starts reading or starts talking about his son. And then I come up to do the eulogy. And I'm sitting next to the oldest son, the one I said I looked up to kind of as a little bit, kind of an older brother. So he's generally very quiet. He's very quiet, very friendly, super friendly. Like he is the most affable, even guy, even tempered person you could meet. But he also he lets other people talk all the time. He I did a eulogy and I sat down and he said he just basically says under his breath, he goes, I got to say something. So he gets up, walks up there, and it was one of the saddest things. I mean, on top of everything, just watching him up there, he said, I had 3 brothers, and now it's just me. And I'm sitting there thinking, and I know what's going through his head. I'm the oldest. I'm not supposed to be the last one left. He lives further away from his dad than all of the other sons did. And, there's a feeling of, because my brother goes through it as well, there's a feeling of being removed from the family a bit because you're not close enough to make all of the family get-togethers. You're not as close to everybody as it is. I mean, we chat all the time, we hang out all the time, or whenever he's in town, we make time to hang out, but it's not as often. But between him and his dad, my my uncle's ex-wife, both of her sons are dead now. She has nobody. I think she was an only child. Both of her parents have passed. She is divorced from her husband that she married after my uncle. And now both of her sons were dead before they reached 35. One before he was 30, and one right after turning 30, basically. It sucks to be around. And I don't like being around it. It's kind of like how I don't watch war movies after coming back from Iraq. Like movies that I saw beforehand, I can still watch, but movies I haven't seen, I don't like watching them. World War II, I can still do, but it's because it's close, and you feel about it if you are a parent. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. Friend of mine, he just posted on Facebook. I think his daughter was 6 when she got diagnosed with cancer. And it's been 14 years since that diagnosis. She's graduating from high school. There was so much anxiety. There was so much fear at the beginning of the diagnosis. There's so much anxiety after it went into remission that it was going to come back, 1. And 2, did the chemo slow her mental development down? I don't think so. I taught her in Sunday school. She was very bright. Leaning on God for a lot, but he said, because this is another year, we forgot that today was the day she was diagnosed. This is the anniversary of her getting diagnosed 14 years ago. And he goes, it's such a blessing now that doesn't hang over our heads as much as it did, and that she's great, and that she's accomplishing something. It's a what do you call it? It's a landmark in life. She's graduating from high school. Good kid. It's a good kid. All right. So, Carl, welcome to the show. Hope to see you back around here. Like I said, mostly around 8 o'clock. We'll be moving at some point to 8:30 in the not so distant future. Neo, aka Caleb, glad to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Same thing with you, Dresden, Texan Italian, and I think that's the whole crew in the chat tonight. Look, whether you are in the chat or whether you're in the chat, whether you're just a wallflower, whether you're catching this on the replay, look, I appreciate any attention you give. I'm just so thankful that you get something out of this, that you want to tune in. I'm glad that you want to be in this space with me and build this and have this community, whether it stays small or if it gets larger. Don't care. I like to see it get larger just because it means more people getting what I think is positive impact. So if you haven't already, like these episodes, subscribe if you haven't, get a notification, keep tuning in, keep chatting, keep listening, and share. If you think that this space is worth getting bigger, share it. Share the episodes. Share them on Facebook, share them on Twitter, share them wherever. Share them in the chat with your friends and family or whatever. And that is what I have to say. But I want you guys, but more than anything, I want you guys to have a nice, great, happy weekend. I want you guys to be safe. I want you guys to tune in here on Monday, when Monday comes around. We could talk about, it's another Monday. But with that said, guys, thank you. Love you all. And have a good next few days off. And we'll talk again on Monday. So, everybody, have a good night and God bless. Thanks, guys.